We will call the meeting to order. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Senator Wilk?
Present.
Senator Leyva? Senator Roth? Assemblymember O'Donnell? Assemblymember Cunningham? Assemblymember Burke? Juan Morales?
Here.
Jeremy Smith?
Here.
Ana Lasso?
Present.
Gail Miller?
Here. Okay,
We don't quite have a quorum yet.
Oh, aren't we? Oh,
That's only 5.
Oh, I thought we were. Oh, you're right. Shoot, I thought we had a quorum. All right. Okay, we'll give it one more minute. I'm gonna, as a subcommittee, I'm gonna quickly read the and hope that someone joins before we move to any action items.
O'Donnell.
Oh, hi, Mr. O'Donnell's here, so we do have a quorum. Great.
Thank you.
Pursuant to Governor Newsom's Executive Order N2520 issued on March 12, 2020. This meeting is being conducted by way of teleconference. It's also being physically webcast from room 6300 at 707 3rd Street in West Sacramento, if anyone wants to provide public comment in person. In order for the meeting to run efficiently, all participants will be muted during the meeting. If board members or the public would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, which is under reactions if you're on the new version, or participants on the old version. If you're calling into the meeting and not using the Zoom app, unfortunately, you will not be able to provide public comment. The Zoom link is on our website for anyone that's interested. The state allocation meeting, originally scheduled for July 28th, as we previously announced, has been canceled for the month of July and will resume in August. And upon conclusion of this public meeting, the State Allocation Board will meet in closed session via a Zoom link that I think Ms. Jones is going to resend to the board for the purpose of conferring and receiving advice from legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1. And after that closed session, we will have a readout for the meeting, or from that closed session. So first action item is the minutes. Are there any public comment on the minute? Any corrections or changes from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Moved, O'Donnell.
Moved by O'Donnell, seconded by Wilk, and no public comment. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll, and we'll leave it open for members to add on.
Great. Senator Wilk?
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell?
Aye.
Juan Morales?
Aye.
Jeremy Smith?
Aye.
Ana Lasso?
Aye.
Gail Miller?
Aye, and Ms. Burke is here. Ms. Burke, would you like to vote on the minute?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll leave that open, although that does have enough votes to pass. Next, we'll move on to the executive officer statement, please. Ms. Silverman?
Yeah, we have a few things to share tonight, and just wanted to note on the priority funding apportionment. So the board took action in March to fund nearly $520 million in program grants. So that's great news for the program. But just want to give the update was on June 11th, just an update to the item itself, that the board did receive, or staff did receive, over $237 million in fund release requests. So that's great news. We are making a really big progression in the fund release request, and we have released over $204 million in fund release request. And so just a reminder, I know we're not going to have a July meeting, but we just want to remind districts that their fund release requests are due July 27th. So we'll be actively engaged in contacting districts if you have not submitted your fund release requests. So come in for your cash. It's really important that we fund your project. And then the next item I wanted to share was party funding apportionment filing round certification closed on June 10th. And why is that important? Because if the district had an unfunded approval, they were eligible to submit for the filing round. And just wanted to share with the board that we had over $768 million in requests received. So that's great news for that fall bond sale. Again, these certifications are valid from July 1st through December 31st. So again, that's great news that we had a huge certification round. And then the last item I wanted to share, since Gail did touch on that not having a July meeting, we want to give an update to the board that we have 2 announcements in the virtual training, which is, again, exciting. August 3rd, we'll be hosting a financial hardship program update. And this is really important for districts who may not have a program match, and how do you become eligible. So we'll go over the eligibility criteria, and then we'll also go over, and once you meet that criteria and what things that's going to evaluate the amount of funds available. So again, this is an important training, August 3rd. Join us, sign up. We actually did send a web alert and sign up on our virtual training website. So again, really important, because about 12% of our program grants do go out for financial hardship districts that are eligible. So good program knowledge here. And then the second item we wanted to share was September 9th. I know it's far away, but we just want to have a second announcement related to a site development worksheet and the new facility hardship cost estimates. Since we did go through some evolution of changes with the facility hardship program grant, and we provided some updates with respect to our cost worksheets, we wanted to take some time and cover those topics, because it actually was a constituent request. So we want to honor those requests from our constituency. And so we'll be covering that topic September 9th at 10 a.m. to 11:30. So again, please sign up for our virtual training web workshops. And again, these are very good information to share with you in advance. But again, if you're not available, please go to our resource page and sign up for all the available workshops and actually go through it. And there's a lot of good information there. So again, we're really excited about these 2 announcements. And that's all I have to share.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to note that Mr. Tchaikovsky, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, said thank you for all the work you do in the chat. And I agree with that. So thank you for that lovely comment. That was really kind of you to do. Any questions for Ms. Silverman? Any public comment? And I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate Ms. Silverman on her appointment. We're very, very pleased. She obviously does a great job and is part of an amazing team. So we're thrilled. Thank you so much for all you do for the students and the state. We're very, very grateful. Okay, seeing no public comment, we will move on, please, to the consent agenda. Ms. Silverman?
The consent agenda is ready for your approval.
Great. Any public comment? Seeing none, any member of the board have any questions? Seeing none, may we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda?
Moved.
Moved by Ms. Burke,
Seconded.
seconded by Ms. Lasso. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Will you call the roll, please?
Yes, I will. Senator Wilk,
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell,
Aye.
Assemblymember Burke,
Aye.
Juan Morales,
Aye.
Jeremy Smith,
Aye.
Ana Lasso,
Aye.
Gail Miller.
Aye. So the consent calendar is adopted, and we will leave that open too in case any other members join. Next, we'll move to the financial reports from Ms. Silverman, please.
Yes, on page 88, again, we've been sharing about the progression of cash going out to the program. So again, this is a result of the fund release request received as a result of the spring bond sale. So the activity want to report is $152 million did get released to the projects, again, associated with the spring bond sale. And then if we can advance to page 90 and 91, the board took action today on 40 program grants for over $49 million. And we also have 1 design grant for full day kinder that we also wanted to share that was highlighted in the consent agenda today.
Great, thank you, Ms. Silverman. Any questions on this item from the board? Any public comment? Again, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you want to make a comment or have any questions. Okay, seeing none, that was an informational item. And we will now move on to the Tipton Elementary appeal. Ms. Kampminer, please.
Thank you. Yes, the Tipton appeal is found on stamp page 109 of today's agenda, and this item is related to new construction eligibility, and it's actually similar to 2 prior appeals that the board has heard for Pleasant View Elementary in February 2019 and Pioneer in September 2020. Just as a reminder, neither of those prior appeals were approved. But with respect to the current appeal, the district has 3 separate requests for the board's consideration. Unfortunately, staff cannot recommend approval of any of the requests, as we believe it would represent an unfair funding advantage to the district, not extended to other districts that were experiencing similar eligibility circumstances, and we believe it is in conflict with the regulations that the board adopted a few years ago. But as a refresher on the general topic, when the board was determining how to best move forward with the program, back when Proposition 51 passed, regulations were adopted to require districts to demonstrate new construction eligibility, which shows a need for added capacity, but eligibility at the time that the application is processed. This was done because at that time, board members were concerned with using the new construction bond authority for projects that had been previously built and occupied and had been sitting on the applications received beyond bond authority list for a number of years. There was concern that this would not be in keeping with what voters were expecting the bond authority to be used for. So at the time the regulations were adopted, the board did share with districts as part of that same consideration that they could appeal if there were unique circumstances related to their eligibility that should be considered. So in accordance with the board's decision and the regulations, staff has been processing new construction funding requests based on eligibility that's available at the time of processing since that time point. The Tipton project was submitted to the applications received beyond bond authority list in November 22nd, 2016. The scope of the project is construction of a classroom as well as a multi-purpose building. As it was submitted to the applications received beyond bond authority list, the district was also required to submit a board certification, a board resolution that acknowledged that the requirements of the program may be different, the project might be returned, and that if the district proceeded in advance of receiving state funding, that the state's not responsible. The specifics of the resolution can actually be found on stamp page 111 of this agenda item. The notice to proceed for the contract was issued approximately December 2016, and the project was constructed moving forward with a combination of local bond funds plus additional funds from the general fund and a loan. And the project was completed in 2018 and has since been occupied. The funding application for the project was processed in 2019, and per the regulations, the funding was based on the new construction eligibility that was available as a result of enrollment projections from the 2018-19 enrollment information. And unfortunately, this information did not result in any new construction eligibility for the project, so it was returned. The application was returned to the district. In January 2021, the district did submit the appeal request for the board to consider alternate options for new construction eligibility. The first ask was to base the funding off of new construction eligibility that was generated using the 2014-2015 enrollment information. If this were approved, it would result in a little over $2 million in state funding. And to get into a little bit of the specifics of that, the 2014-15 enrollment information, it presumes the use of a 3-year lock, which is still a provision of the program where small school districts can submit a new construction eligibility update and lock that eligibility in for a period of 3 years from the time at which the board approves it. However, 14-15 is the only year in recent history that does demonstrate new construction eligibility for the district, but that was also a year in which, per the board's prior direction, we were not processing new construction eligibility or funding applications because we didn't have any bond authority. We were in between bonds. There was no known program that was coming to be at that time period. Also, there wasn't actually an enrollment update that was submitted in 2014-15, so this would be a retroactive look at eligibility. The district's overall enrollment trends have actually shown a decline since that time point. So we're not seeing something in particular about the 14-15 enrollment year that would point to a PSC that is the correct year for the enrollment for the project that was submitted in 2016. It is a year that does demonstrate need for the project. So unfortunately, we don't believe that that's a more accurate year to use for enrollment. We also have concerns that is inconsistent with the board's regulations that were approved with Proposition 51, and it would be unfair to all other districts that have submitted eligibility updates and funding applications that have been processed since then. The second request would be to allow the district a period of time up to November 1st, 2024 to submit the new funding application and receive a new date in line, and use the eligibility that would be generated at the time point at such the district resubmitted the application. And in doing so, it would have to waive the requirement and regulation that funding applications be submitted prior to occupancy. We see some challenges from both a regulatory standpoint and a legal standpoint on this. The requirement that applications be submitted prior to occupancy has been in regulations since 2004. And it's basically the line in the sand where it's considered okay to use new construction bond authority for a project where students have already materialized, as opposed to looking towards building towards the future, which is really more what the bond authority is aimed towards, is that future growth projection. We actually have had at the board a couple of discussions about the correct time point for cutting off new construction eligibility application submittal, and we have legal opinions that are referenced in the item here as far back as 2009, expressing concerns for funding projects after occupancy. So we don't think this is a viable option. It, in addition to the legal and the regulatory challenges, it is still unfair to the other districts that would not be afforded that same option. It's contrary to the regulation, and it potentially provides false hope because we don't really know what's going on in the next few years with the program. So we have a lot of concerns with the second request. With the third request, the district is asking that the board allow them to base the funding for the project on the new construction eligibility that is generated using the 2020-2021 enrollment information. So the year that we're, I guess it technically just ended. I think we're kind of still in the tail end of it, but this current year. And this would result in not the $2 million that the 2014 enrollment projection would, but about $770,000, give or take, in state funding for the project. In the past, we have been supportive of appeals that have been, we've started processing the application, and then there wasn't enough eligibility to proceed with the application. The district submitted an appeal. We crossed over into that next appeal, into that next enrollment year during the appeal processing, and new information became available. We have a number of those, and they are included in a chart in the item here that we have recommended approval, and the board has approved those. So for instance, if we were processing in 18-19, we received the appeal, then the 19-20 information became available. Because we were still processing the application, we were comfortable that the timeframes were sufficient and that it could still be reasonable to use that information. But we do have concerns with the length of time between the 18-19 enrollment information for Tipton compared to the request to use the 2021 enrollment information, because that's not crossing over into the next year. That's actually a 2-year jump. 2021 enrollment data does minimally support some funding for the project, but this application was revoked and sent back to the district in September of 2019. The appeal request came approximately 17 months later, in January 2021. And the district and the consultant have stated that they were in part waiting for to see what happened with the 1920 enrollment information, amongst other things, and that the 1920 enrollment information did not show sufficient eligibility for the project. So 2021 is really the next year from 14-15 that showed some sort of enrollment information that would support it. Now, there isn't necessarily a time limit on appealing pursuant to the board's rules and procedures, but we have concerns that this would set a precedent that could be problematic because there really is no endpoint, with districts potentially just waiting until there's an advantageous time point at which to submit an appeal request. So we have some major concerns with that. And again, this is not consistent with processing, using the information at the time of processing. It's not consistent with how other districts were treated. So it would be unfair to those other districts and result in an unfair advantage as well. So unfortunately, we do not find ourselves in a position of being able to recommend to the board approval of any of the options the district has put out there for consideration. At this point, the project has been constructed and occupied through local funds for the district. Unfortunately, we don't think that it meets the criteria for the state funding right now, but we do have the districts and its representatives on our Zoom call today to address any questions or speak. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at the staff perspective, or we can turn it over to the district at this point.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Campiner. That was really helpful. I'm going to turn it over now to the Tipton School District. I think we have a couple folks that want to speak. I'm going to let you decide the order. We have Ms. Betancourt and Mr. Alvarez and Mr. Reynolds. Whoever wants to begin.
I'll go ahead and start. I would like to thank the board for considering our appeal and OPSC for being so helpful with this. I was not the superintendent when this project was planned and constructed, but I would like to say that our community has greatly benefited as a result of this project. We're a small rural school district. Tipton's a Provision 2 school, and all of our students receive free breakfast and lunch. And we currently have 344 English language learners. Most of our students are Hispanic. This new gym provides the necessary space to feed, assemble, and meet the physical education needs of our students. The school is the hub of our community, and they don't have access to any other facilities other than our school. We've been able to host a variety of events, trainings, family meals, sporting events, theater productions, community learning nights, to name just a few. Our previous facility was built in 1953, and I understand it was not fiscally responsible to bring the building up to code and provide the necessary services for our students going forward. During the pandemic, this facility allowed our staff to make meals for the community for 18 and under, as well as providing a place for students to eat once they return for in-person instruction following the 6-foot guidelines. I know many schools were not able to do that, and we are very fortunate to have this facility to do that. We were able to use our bus drive-through for families to come and get meals with contactless delivery. The community finally passed a bond after 3 tries. This was something that the community and former superintendents, actually 2 of them, tried to pass. And it did finally pass, and it was very important to our community to complete this project. The school was hopeful that the funds would come in and support this project. The school did borrow money in order to complete it, as well as contributing from our general fund over several years for this project. I represent the board and asking. I know I've worked with OPSC and I understand their stance on it. I wasn't in the process when this was being developed, and I know the board signed the resolution, and they were hopeful that those funds would come. And when the rules changed as to the eligibility, then that put our school district in a loss of not being able to have any funds to help our little school district. And I understand, the new rules and what has been decided. We're just trying to appeal it in hopes that our school district would be able to receive something as far as contributing to this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reynolds?
Good afternoon. Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here in front of the board. And this is a very unique project in that it really is a minimum essential facility project. The site did not have a gym. And of course, this new building also provides the additional support facilities for the cafeteria purposes also, which was just talked about. But unfortunately, even though the district was successful with their $3 million bond, the cost of a facility is much more than that. So the district was fortunate that it was able to save up money to cover most of those costs. Its debt, that the loan it had to take out, is only $1.2 million. So it's only a small ask to try to make the district whole here. That the impact of that loan is costing the district about $90,000 a year. Again, not a large number, but considering what their amount they get from their LCFF formula, it's about 1.5%. So again, it is unfortunately going to cause money coming out of the classroom, which we don't like to see. So I am asking if you can possibly consider option 3. I know that's only maybe 700, 800,000, but that would cover a significant portion of their remaining debt. Any more than that is not really needed. I'm not sure if you're aware, but again, due to the age of this school, the district was just awarded design money for a financial hardship modernization project. So again, they're going to be getting some money to help deal with the aging facilities also. So if you were generous and gave them the 2.5 million, anything in excess of that, paying down that debt, would just contribute towards their modernization project that's already in the design process now. So again, we're only asking for the smaller amount in option 3 to help make this small district whole. Again, they have a gym in their community. Up until then, they had to travel 10 miles all the way up to Tulare, where all the students progress to high school, to have access to gym facilities. So again, it was a much needed project. New construction program is the only program that the state offers right now that will help fund necessary facilities like this. And so it is an outside the box of what is normally seen in the new construction projects. So anyway, I thought that additional information might help you understand why this project occurred when it did. They're fortunate they didn't wait because it's been invaluable, but mostly because they had that bond that finally passed. And as you know, as you wait for projects, they get more expensive, and those bond dollars do not grow over time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I do have a few questions. Any other questions from the board, though? And I'm just going to do a couple things. Senator Leyva, do you prefer to vote on the other items now or after the appeal? It's up to you.
I can vote after the appeal.
Okay.
That is no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Well, I really do appreciate you being here, and obviously we've spent a lot of time thinking of ways that we can help small school districts, and we are hopeful there'll be another school bond. I think I just want to clarify that the insolvency, that it seems that you're not necessarily, if you could just please clarify if insolvency is a potential. It doesn't sound like it is now, so if you could please clarify that for us. Ms. Betancourt or Mr. Reynolds? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. I assumed that Stacy would want to address that issue, but in the item, it does show that the district is not insolvent. It does show that they are deficit spending. And of course, paying off this debt would help greatly reduce that. But I don't believe they had any negative certification.
Okay, it looks like Ms. Betancourt is agreeing with that.
We are, in regards from the county, we are deficit spending.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you for that. And then I do think, in terms of what enrollment we use, I think this is an important point because it really could set a difficult precedent. So we've allowed one change in enrollment, and I know Ms. Kempner went over this, but I think the idea of the bond, because it's in such great demand, is difficult to sort of choose the time period by which we define enrollment. And I know I completely understand where the district is coming from, but we've only allowed one change, but this appeal would actually lead to 2 years, and then a subsequent appeal could ask for longer. So I just would never want to be outside the Prop 51 bond authority. And so I think I just would never want to be contrary to any regulations, and I think this kind of precedent really could get us there. So for those reasons, we don't support the appeal. Really would love for you to continue working with the staff, depending on the outcome of your appeal today. I think they've really proven to be huge advocates, and we'll continue to work with you to make sure that you really maximize the potential for Tipton And hopefully there will be another bond in the future. So I think that is really what we're hopeful for, is that we'll be able to serve the state as all of these students and schools really do deserve to be served. So any additional public comment or questions? Seeing none, what is the will of the board? So there's no motion. Please, so the appeal won't be granted, but I really do hope, Ms. Betancourt, that you will please stay in touch with our team and really see how we can continue to work together. And I personally will make myself available, and we are very, very committed to really helping small school districts in our state. So please be in touch, and we would love to be able to continue to work with you and your district. And I know this has been a really trying year, so all my very, very best for the 21-22 school year. I hope it's successful for all of you. And I admire everything you've done, like as a public school parent. Thank you. It's not easy.
And we'll be reaching out to
Great. Thank you,
district
Ms. Silverman.
right after the meeting, and hopefully we can touch base and make some progress there.
Thank you. So I think we will now, very briefly, I'm going to ask Mr. Tofosky, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, wanted to make a public comment, I believe on the consent agenda. So if you want to put your camera back on, sir, and feel free to make a public comment now.
How am I? Am I on screen and voice?
You're on voice. Oh, and now I see you. Yes, please go
Okay.
ahead. And could you just clarify, please state your name for the record? Oh my goodness, you're on.
What am I on?
You're moving everywhere, but
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. I'm much slower than I used to be.
I would say it was me, but I haven't had that much fun in a long time.
Okay, well, you should not have so many cappuccinos then. My name is David Tokowski, and as I used to pronounce to my immigrant students, toe like on your feet, cough like you have a cold, and ski like you're going down a mountain. I guess with the drought, probably a mountain in Colorado, not California. But I'm speaking first of all to thank all of you for the great work you do and the great work that our school district leaderships across the state do on behalf of building a better state and building back better in every way we can. I just raised one question, and I'm not sure of the rules. One is when a charter school, in the case of the one in LA Unified, which was called Camino Nuevo, is asked to have their loan absorbed by another charter in a bid process. One, shouldn't charters that are affiliated, or what some people call dependent charters, be just as eligible to bid in that competition and be informed so that all types of charters could bid? And two, prior to that, is there a requirement to bid and to have 3 bidders to replace the original charter and 3 qualified bidders to be bidding in order to move forward with the occupation of a building under the Department of Finance rules, as well as the Office of Public School Construction? I hope that wasn't obtuse or too long, but the question is to make sure if there are 3 competent bidders required by either Department of Finance or the Office of Public School Construction, to make sure that is true. And most importantly, in our state, we have independent charters and we have charters that are affiliated with school district. And I believe in statute, they are both LEAs and both should be eligible to pursue revenues.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to turn it to Ms. Kampminer because I think you're talking on the consent item but I don't know if we're conflating that with the regs item. So Ms. Kampminer,
It
Can
could
you help
carry
with
over. I'm trying not to conflate it because I don't know what the reg changes are.
yeah, so Ms. Kampminer, do you want to comment on that and answer the question? And Mr. Tokowski, may I ask that you turn your camera off, please?
Sure. Am I moving too much?
Yes, and I don't think it's my coffee. Thank you. I really do appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, I can address the questions. With regards to affiliated charters or dependent charters, the proposed regulatory amendments do not disallow affiliated charters from participating and being a successor charter school. The program itself allows for both affiliated charters and non-affiliated charters to participate in the charter school facilities program. So for any successor charter entities, the same rules would apply. We did not put anything into the regulations to require a certain number of bidders. The regulations, and I'll get into this in a little bit too, but the regulations that are proposed for the board's consideration today are aimed at being statewide, and we have a lot of different circumstances with charter schools across the state. We have some areas that have a lot of charter schools, and you may have strong competition for facilities, and we may have cases where there might only be one or two other charter schools that exist in the school district that ends up having a facility. So if we put a number of bids on this, then we may end up in a situation where there is not a successor charter school, and then we would have to move on to the next provision in law, which reverts the property to the school district to determine if they want the facility. So that's why we do not have a set number of bidders proposed in the regulation amendments, and it is not in the current regulations either.
Got it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so the question about how many are required to apply, that's in neither the consent nor the regulatory item, is that correct? That's not prescriptive in terms of how many applicants there have to be pursuant to
Correct.
the-
In
okay.
the consent item, we're basically ratifying the process or the selected charter school that the LA Unified School District had already vetted that process, and there were folks that applied to that and scored. And so the California School Finance Authority has found that charter school entity financially sound. The LA Unified School Board has determined that that is the successor charter school based on the RFP process that the district and the state, which encompasses both OPSC, SAB, and the California School Finance Authority. So all were involved in ensuring that it was a fair, transparent process, but LAUSD is ultimately the RFP holder on that. So what we asked the board to do in the consent calendar was just to ratify that decision so that we can start receiving the loan payments from Alliance, who is the new charter school, because Camino Nuevo is no longer in operation. So it's transferring that project over to the successor charter school. So that was the action and consent that we needed by the board.
Thank you for that. So I think, Mr. Tokowski, in terms of the Alliance decision, it's an issue to take up actually with the school board, because the state agencies are judge financial soundness and ability to repay the loans, but we don't actually determine the successor school. I hope that distinction makes sense. So this is an example of how the charter school system works within this, especially for financing, works within the state system and then the local school board system. So there's a delineation of what we can and can't do. So your question around how many have to apply to be a successor charter school is not within the state allocation board's jurisdiction. I hope that's helpful.
No.
I know sometimes different branches of government and different levels of government can be confusing, but I'm happy to also take this offline and make sure that we clarify it to the best of our ability.
Absolutely.
But for now, that's
the two of you have done a great job of explaining things. If the local school board, which I was a member of for 3 terms, 12 years, 144 months, believed that they had to have more than one, that's their own decision, not SAB or the Finance Authority. And 2, if somebody told them they had to do more than one from either agency, that's not correct. What's correct is what you just said. And 2, there's nothing precluding a charter that is affiliated or the district for assuming this $10 million loan themselves rather than passing it from one charter to another. Is that correct?
May I make a clarification on
Yeah,
that?
please.
Sure.
So the next step is that a successor charter take over. Now with an affiliated charter school, the district is providing the financial backing on that. So in that
Right.
sense, a district can be making the loan payments, but they're doing so for that affiliated charter school. We cannot skip that step where a successor charter has an opportunity for the facility and go straight to the district, just taking the facility for standard non-charter purposes. So that would
Correct.
just be a point of clarification on
Right.
that.
No,
More
but,
like-
but an
yeah, it's more like a
affiliated
sublease.
charter is an LEA.
It's a little bit, it functions more like a sublease would, more than,
I don't, in statute, it doesn't distinguish between a charter that is independent and a charter that is affiliated. And so they both should have equal weight of assuming the loan. And if a formerly known as a dependent charter, a charter that's affiliated, has a district that could absorb a $10 million loan, in the case of LA Unified, which has $7 or $8 billion, they could have assumed that loan themselves.
so I think I'm going to refer you, Mr. Tokowski, and we're happy to help you with this
Okay.
to LAUSD for some of these questions. Because again, this is outside of our jurisdiction, so I would hate to answer a question for the district.
I will speak to your former colleague, Jackie Goldberg,
Yes,
and let her know what I've learned from you, 2 or 3 great people. And I want to welcome my former teacher to your board, Anna Lasso.
wow, she was your teacher?
No.
Yeah. She taught me everything about urban studies.
Mr. Tchaikovsky's too kind. That was his
Well,
chief
we're
of staff.
all very happy to have Ms. Lasso here. Okay, so we're going to quickly open up the roll, Senator Leyva, on the items, and then we're going to go to Mr. Tokowski and anyone else, the charter school regulation item that's up next. So on the minutes, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
Thank you. So the minutes are adopted on the consent calendar.
Aye.
The consent calendar is
you.
adopted.
Got it.
On the,
That's it.
and that's it, right, Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now we will move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the amendments to the charter schools facility programs. Ms. Kampminer.
Yes, a good timely discussion on the public comment here because the purpose of this item is actually to provide a little bit of clarity around the process of selecting a successor charter school. So on page 144 of your agenda, we have an item that is proposing regulatory amendments to the charter school facilities program section of the regulations. And it is aimed at providing some additional steps and processes to be used in the event that a charter school facility that was funded under the charter school facilities program is no longer being used for charter school purposes by the original applicant, and it needs to take that next step in the process. Now, statute and regulations outline that that first charter school has certain rights with respect to when they need to vacate the facilities, but at the point at which it's determined that they no longer need the facilities, the next step is that a successor charter school has the opportunity to take over the project and the facilities on equal terms as the original charter school and start using the facilities for charter school purposes. So we have had these regulations in place for a number of years, going back to the beginning years of the program, back with Proposition 47. So we're in the 2002 timeframe. The regulations followed in the next couple of years. But the program overall, it's been around for, what are we at here, 18-ish years, and we haven't had many of these come up where we've needed to use the regulations to find a new charter school to take over the facilities. But obviously with the age of the program, we may see that happen periodically. And we did have this, the Camino Nuevo project that came up in LA Unified that did start some conversations with school districts. And we had another one that may be pending as well. So we had some contact with the school districts, and there was some discussion, a very collaborative process where districts have started asking, we could use a little more guidance on how we do this. The state agreed that that would be a good thing to have some transparency in this process. So we were working through the Camino Nuevo, realizing that we had some places in the regulations that we could clarify. We went out to stakeholders in February of this year, and then actually back in May on our last board meeting that same day, had a second stakeholder conversation with some proposed regulations to identify a process that would give some additional clarity. And on page 145, we've got some bullet points there on what the proposed regulations do. And they provide basically an overview of the notification process that should occur and the selection process. They clarify and identify the entity that is responsible for doing that notification for interested charter schools, and that is the school district. It indicates that the charter schools that are eligible to operate and that are at the appropriate grade levels in that particular school district should be notified of this opportunity. We did also outline the minimum requirements to be considered a successor charter school, because there are some provisions in law and in the program itself that the requirements that need to be met in order to participate in the program. And that does include things such as serving classroom-based students, being found financially sound by the California School Finance Authority. We did also provide some examples of allowable requirements, because there may be a case, as I just mentioned, there might be a case where you've only got one or two schools and maybe only one of them wants the facility, but then there could be a case where you have a larger number of charter schools that are interested in taking over the facility. So we've outlined some preference points categories. There are some preference points from the state side of things, because the statute does have preferences on who should receive the Charter School Facilities Program funding. So we've added that in there, as well as some room for districts to also have preference points that meet the school district's needs as well. And outline just a collaborative process where the state and the school district are working together to ensure that the process that results meets the program criteria, so that we can move through in a transparent way, get a new charter school in there as quickly as possible, somebody that's going to be able to take over this loan for the life of the project and make good use of the facilities. We got great feedback at the stakeholder meetings and from the districts, both at the meeting, and then we had some letters that came afterwards. And we did provide some charts to the board in this item to discuss what we did incorporate into the regulations and what we did not. One of the things that we did incorporate is if there are two smaller charter schools that wanted to take the facility together, sort of a joint partnership. And so we did add some language in the regulations to clarify that, yes, that could happen, and basically whose preference points would be used if that were to happen. And then you will see a number of things that we were not able to incorporate. I will say the majority of those are statutory. We had some barriers there where, all the ideas make sense. We hear them, but we had some barriers with the statute and that we couldn't trump in the regulations. So as it stands, basically the district is still going to do the process to notify to notify potential successor charters and to run the selection process with the preference points, but determining what preference points are allowable, that's done in collaboration with the state. Both the state and the district have a role in the statute, and so we largely mirrored that here in the regulations. With that, it is the only section of the regulations that we've changed. This doesn't change the order of who gets the school next. All it does is provide clarity on how you pick that next charter school. With that, we have the regulations ready for the board's approval and request the board to approve them and authorize the executive officer to file them and make them permanent. We went with a regular track on these as opposed to emergency, just the path that made the most sense. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for that and for all the work you did in seeking input and incorporating input. Any questions or comments from the board on the regulatory changes? Any public comment? Anyone wishing to comment for any reason? Please use the raise hand feature in the Zoom app. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the regulatory amendments in attachment B and authorizing the EO to file the regulations with OAL?
So moved.
Great, thanks, Senator Leyva.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Burke. Ms. Jones, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, I will. Senator Wilk,
Aye.
Senator Leyva,
Aye.
Assemblymember O'Donnell, Assemblymember Burke,
Aye.
Juan Morales,
Aye.
Jeremy Smith.
Aye.
Ana Lasso,
Aye.
Gail Miller,
Aye.
and that motion carries.
Okay, Mr. O'Donnell, did you want to vote on the reg changes for charter schools?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Silverman, do you want to present our workload and dates?
Yes, I wanted to check in to see if they have any questions related to the workload list, and then our next meeting is in August.
Great. Any public comment? Any questions? So at this time, the State Allocation Board will meet in closed session. Sam Gallardo and I actually both bumped up the link, so you can just click on those links. And we're meeting in closed session for the purpose of conferring with and receiving advice from legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1. And I will return to the public meeting link upon conclusion of closed session, and I'll report out any updates from closed session. So with that, we'll recess this open session. Please leave this Zoom link and enter the one we just bumped up. Thanks, everyone. We met in closed session via Zoom for the purpose of conferring with and receiving advice from legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 11126E1. And there was no action taken and nothing to report. And at this time, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, and please look at our website for details on our next meeting date and time and location in August. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Take care.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Bye.